Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. I'm very happy to have you here. My name is Rafa. This is Mystic Times. And today I have the very special honor of having with me the beautiful Niish, which is going to, I promise this is going to be a wonderful conversation because we have such a beautiful dynamic together. And well, without further ado, let me introduce and say hello to Niish. How are you?
Hello, Rafa. It's a pleasure to be back in conversation with you. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise. I'm very happy as well. Um, I really enjoyed our conversation that we had, and you featured on your own podcast.
Yes.
Remind me the name of your podcast. I'm blanking it right now. I wanted to make a
The Cosmic Salon.
correct. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to share the name of it here and point people to go over there and check it out if you already don't know about it. But most likely you're here because of Nish, because of how interesting she is and her views, and you're a very good not interviewer isn't the word I'm looking for, but a good you have good questions. You like to it's like I sense from you a very a very true and honest introspection, and you probably are a kind of person who looks within and you explorations is the word that comes for me. I'm a similar kind of person as well, so when we spoke together you asked a few very very the word is poignant, I think that's the word, like very incisive and clear questions that you had, I guess, some interest in looking into, and I was very happy to work kind of as a mirror over there in looking into those things which for me are also very interesting, all the weird stuff. And so despite people probably already knowing about you, those who are listening, because you have a long trajectory in the communication space, let's say, please, would you be so kind as to share with me and with the audience a little bit of your background, or how you got into being interested in all things weird?
Oh, I was born into all things weird. In
Mm.
fact, I am one of those all things weird.
Mm.
But I have always been in the arts, and it's been a theme in my life. I think that's a theme in most of our lives. We're creative people, right? And I don't allow myself restrictions within my modes or modalities of finding ways to create. I have studied formally, though, painting and other arts, book arts, and all kinds of stuff, depth psychology, Jungian in particular. Done lots of fun stuff in that realm, the art films and paintings and poetry and shows. Oh my. And I decided to come forward several years ago. I had now very long ago in 2006, I started to receive a lot of downloads. Uh, I guess this is the point where I say I am a full clairsentient person, and these these extrasensory perceptions that I am open to, because I think we all have them, and it's just a matter of being open to them and understanding how they function, have always been a key player in my life since I was, well, ever since anything I can recall. So that's always at play with me. There's a psychic knowing, and so I started to have these downloads in about 2006 that were different, and all of a sudden kind of cracking open a weird future that was more dystopian. And I I felt the need several years ago to come forward and start shining a light, like a lighthouse light, out into the realm to see who else was aware of what was coming and who else was shining out there as well. And I did that vis-a-vis my channel with Jerry Cthulhu called Nox Mente, or our show Nox Mente, which is had a lot of amazing people. There's a lot of great content over there. And then that spun off into the obelisk, which is what we do now, which I will be doing later on after this. We do it on Wednesdays. And somewhere along the line, maybe over a year now, I decided to do the Cosmic Salon and start really getting specific with the messaging I was trying to bring forth. Now, in my art videos on my personal YouTube channel, I have been putting out all this stuff through artistic symbolic means, and everything I've put out so far has come to pass before it came to pass, before people were talking about it. So I was ahead of this curve because these were very big psychic downloads I had in 2006 that bring us into this time frame. And that is kind of where I am. My questions, Rafa, are always, what is the realm we are in? What is this realm? What is the nature of reality? How is it that we can consider what we believe reality real? And in making that kind of a declaration, how does that close us off to what may actually be happening on other levels that we are not privy to? And these kinds of questionings, these kinds of meanders and sojourns with other people, such as yourself, when we start synergizing and synthesizing each of our own interpretations of the field and what's going on, we get to create, uh, by the magic of connection, something that looks quite different when it's just you. And so we're co-creating everything, I believe. But why are we co-creating a dystopia? Why was all this happening? What is the nature of our reality? Because what's happening to me appears to be very spiritual. So we have to get up off of the physical realm. And I'm questioning, as you know, what is the physical realm so that we can start unlocking what's the emotional realm, what's the psychic realm, what's the etheric realm, and so on. And that's all the, I think, bio I need to bring forward. I'm just a person in the world trying to understand the world and my place in it.
Yeah, that's wonderful that you share all of this. I think it's kind of similar path that many of us who are talking this kind of um, or sharing with each other these kinds of ideas. I think we're all in a different but similar path. I love what you share about being clear sentient and getting these kind of maybe like future prophecies in 2006. I wonder like how deep did those prophecies go in, as far as what's happening today in 2021, almost reaching 2022.
They've played out just as I've been telling everyone, and just as I put forward in my videos on my YouTube channel, my art videos, my personal channel, and all and the art and all this stuff. They played out exactly as I came forward with. I guess this is where I need to do a little shopkeeping as far as what, when I get the information, it's like looking at um a movie scene almost, although we have to decode the movie scene, right? So we break it down into symbols to
Right.
understand what are the symbols. And this is where it becomes a very personalized experience, because your symbols are different than mine. And so a lot of the accuracy in this kind of viewing of what is considered the future is really in understanding the symbolic language and conveying it. So I encounter a lot of people that have these same abilities. And again, I think we all do. It's just a matter of accepting it and moving into it. But I notice that they may have trouble with interpretation of the symbols. And so the information's the same as I'm getting. The interpretation of the symbols is where things go askew. I see this all the time. And this is this is personal work. Nobody can train you for this. This is understanding your core set of symbols in conjunction with the collective. It's all space as far as space oriented. So where you are, your collective archetype for the collective unconscious is different than where I was born. And you've got to start understanding these differences to move forward in the synthesis of information and conveying it to other people. And that's the self-work that we always talk about. That's that self-gnosis. And moving through that kind of territory, we also encounter the components of our own psyche being projected into the outer world. And this is again why that know thyself is very important. What is your content? What are you, as opposed to what's the outer world? And so uh, I feel like I veered a little bit. Did I get anywhere near your question? I was just going.
I love just throwing like a question bomb out there, and we just see what it resonates. I don't know that I really remember the question myself either. It's just interesting to. Oh well, yeah. I think it was in connection to your idea, or not the idea, but to what you talked about being clairsentient and receiving some
Yeah,
information
and
in
the
2006.
accuracy.
And
Yeah,
and
you
I
asked about the
see.
accuracy.
Oh, right, and how it plays into today. And I see very much how the Jungian understandings play into all that you're speaking. And I'm so sure. Just last night, I was listening to a conversation, an interview they were doing to somebody speaking about Jung, and how, like, for example, how much people are disconnected or not very aware of the importance of Jung's work and Jung's views, as far as, for example, in order to be considered or to get I don't know what you call it, but like a PhD or whatever in Jungian psychology, you need to do a lot of study, as far as academic studies goes, whereas for the less profound, maybe, views, or which I would call the Freudian aspect of the thing, which is more materialistic and more atheistic. That is what is commonly taught to whoever finishes basic psychology studies in university or college. As far as I understand, you would go into Freud studies and perhaps a few other things, but the Jungian thing is like barely mentioned. I remember asking once a friend who was studying psychology at the time, asking them, "Oh, and do you know about Carl Jung?" And they were like kind of evading the question because they didn't want to be like exposed as not knowing who I was talking about. And eventually they say, "Oh yeah, Carlo Jung," because here they have this tendency of like changing the names of important figures, into Spanish. So when I was saying Carl Jung, she wasn't very connecting to who I was speaking, and then she like Spanishized the name, and she realized, oh, Carlo Jung, and
Yes.
they like teach a little bit like above the thing, very superficially. I mean, and don't go deep into a kind of psychology that is, to me, is like the most powerful kind of psychology I've encountered. And I share with you this kind of maybe fascination or this resonance with Jung's work.
Yeah, you do need to go through Jungian analysis to move up that ladder. As far as when you're looking at it academically and trying to get all the uh, accreditation. Not that that matters to someone like me. I have been through analysis, and Jung has played a big part since I was a very little child in my life, and got very specific with it. Jung discussion group. I've gone through all the books and the early Jungians that were connected to him. I am a bit of a radical in that I think that there's a whole cult that's developed around Jung, like you see with Steiner and other great minds and Hesch and all these beautiful, amazing souls that came and gave us so much about or concerning the realm and what we're doing, what's happening, what's the soul, etc. And so every time I very rarely encounter modern day Jungians that I consider Jungians. It's a cult, and I'm very unpopular for saying this. It is radical. And I just want to point people back to Jung's fears about this happening, what happened to Jung. And as far as he was afraid that this would happen, he acknowledged that this would happen. And I think a lot of people still try to clinicize his work. And this is the beauty of, they finally released these black books and the red book, a decade ago, bringing forth some of his personal sojourns into the soul, into the nature of being, into what he was, is, and connected to. I think that there are a lot of Jungian posers out there. I think there are a lot of people that read a little bit here and there and get a small grasp, and usually more of his clinical scrub down stuff, and start throwing around terms really carelessly. I think that Jung was a radical in his day. He struggled to keep the scientific community engaged with his work without discrediting himself. He needed to do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have him here like we do now, which is great. But I'm not a fan of modern day Jungian stuff. I think it's fallen so far from the tree. Like I said, there are examples though. So that's what I'm going to say on Jung. I love him and I love his work. And I think people, when they're thinking about Jung, need to get into Jung's work, not Jungian's work. Go directly to the source. And that's one of my main messages in life, Rafa. Go to the source and then find your way fanning out.
I agree. And it seems like it's kind of a sort of inclination, let's say, of modern day culture and human thought, perhaps, or especially the academic side, I believe, this materialistic inclination that kind of that feeds the mainstream, let's say, the mainstream thought of our world today. It has all these pitfalls and risks attached to it, like this fanaticism, or creating orthodoxy, and especially this idea of being a fanatic of something. And so people, when they become fanatic of whatever they do, they actually kind of use the thing they're fans of as a mask of their own prejudices and their own views, and say, and they kind of impose them on this thing, and stop really being informed by the thing, and actually start mutating it to accord to their own beliefs, but still don't wanna, like, they don't want to, or don't dare to say, these are my thoughts. And so they say, oh, this is Jungian thought, but yes, it's actually their thoughts, which they don't dare to say, to be responsible for. So I totally understand what you say, how this, I remember being very young and thinking, or starting to open my eyes and starting to see the shadow aspect of the world, and realizing, oh wow, whatever we create, I would call it the machine back then. The machine, or Babylon was another word that I would use, coming like from the reggae mythos and etc. I would say, oh, Babylon and this beast, whatever you create, it like copies and transforms it and distorts it into a version of something that doesn't resemble the original thing. And I see this happening with many things, and like you were saying, like with most likely this happens also with Jungian thought. I'm not aware, because just like you say, I read Jung. I would love to be able to say that I've read all his books, but I definitely haven't. But I read him when I read about his thought, and I also at the same time have this kind of, maybe you probably resonate with this, this kind of affinity for, in particular, we're talking about Jung, but it happens with other things, this kind of affinity where I can like read a little and it kind of activates a knowledge or a gnosis within me, and then I can like read something else about from him, for example, and be like, yeah, totally, like by just reading one thing I can see other things that are connected. Do you know what I mean? And when I read a new thing by him, it's like totally resonates with what I would imagine the rest of the body of work maybe could point to. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. And see, this is why I don't like modern Jungians in general. They need to own it. And this is what we should learn at the core of anything is we stand on the shoulders of those who've come before us. And we need to get out of their shadow at some point. You learn what's going on, and then you move forward. And at that point, you're synthesizing information, and it's now become you. And you don't need to continually drag the others with you. I am influenced by Jung. I am influenced by Plato. I am influenced by Philo. We go and we stand on these giant shoulders, but eventually I'm speaking for myself through my own experiences.
Because
and that is what we need to acknowledge here, Rafa.
Yeah, sorry to cut you
just
off.
for a technical note, it took me a decade to read through all Jung's books.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, there were times I'd read a paragraph and have to sit with it for hours.
And you know what comes hand in hand with this thing is that something that I think I spoke with somebody else on the podcast recently, that we tend to think like if we develop like our intellect or our rational mind, this in our culture passes as evolution or maturity or growing up. And so people can go to academia or go to tertiary level studies or universities, etc., and they gain all this knowledge and fill up their brains, but their hearts or the rest of their body is like totally, they're oblivious of cultivating those other parts of themselves. So this like fanaticism is a characteristic of an undeveloped heart or whatever. And so they take the new thing that they acquired with their mind and filter it through their personality. And if they don't have a developed personality or a more developed personality, they will based on the new mental knowledge that they've acquired, they will paste or attach their childish ways of interacting with the world. So, for example, they will become fanatic of in this case, let's say, a fanatic of Jung, and then be venerating this symbol that they have created in their childish mind of Jung, and they'll be like this other thing that I was saying, become like orthodox of this one thing, and instead of owning their own ideas and putting them forward, they become, like you say, like a part of the shadow of the thing, and they don't ever rise to become themselves new lighthouses of knowledge and of wisdom and understanding, and they even become aggressive towards other people who don't share their own distorted views, under the flag of being, oh, what you're saying is not Jungian or whatever, right?
Yeah, I get so sick of it. It's really, it's one of those things that tells me someone has not, there's more to go and they need to work on themselves. And at some point, this takes bravery. It takes bravery to step out and say, these are my hypotheses. this is me speaking from the well of my
Mhm.
experience, which has been informed by these behind me,
Mhm.
by, you know, whatever has inspired you, whatever you influence. And I tell you, as a seeker in the world, that everything you encounter becomes a form of influence. Everything, the cat on the floor, everything is influencing you now, and it is a matter of recognizing that it's not you. It's the way you are experiencing the realm and the way you are intaking the information and then processing it. It is bigger than you. Everyone gets caught in their ego with this. And that's what bothers me. This is what bothers me with other people that have the ability to look down the timeline, say, and predict things. And they're always, I said this first. I said this first. I think we need to have a little more humility in the realm and realize that there are thousands of people. Realize, first of all, as I said earlier, that everyone, I believe everyone has the ability to see what's going on psychically. And a lot of people have this ability already. They're doing it. And so for people that want to own stuff and say, well, I called this, I was the first to call that, that's a red flag to me. And I've been really getting agitated by this currently. And I have found my own shadow content projected onto that because it 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 bothers me. And then I found myself in response to it. So through this process that we're in right now in the collective with what's going on in the world, and as I said earlier, the reasons why I came forward really was to bring some awareness as to what's happening. I have found myself learning a great deal more on a deeper level in concerns to myself and these abilities I possess as far as ownership. I don't own anything I see. I just see it and I express it. And when I feel triggered that somebody wants to say, I saw this and I was talking about this way back when in 1900, and that's like, okay, yes, and I acknowledge that. It's all a great learning curve, this whole thing called life, isn't it, Rafa?
Yeah, and those abilities to catch things early should actually be, I think, should be used by oneself to validate one's own experience and to start. Okay, so you're good at catching things earlier. Okay, have more trust in yourself. So whenever something else pops up within your experience or your seeing or whatever, trust more in that. So if you get a kind of intuition about going left or going right, doing this or doing that, listen to your intuition in those cases as well, and not just have the intuition and then later on try to get points from other people. Like, start trusting. This is something very important that we are learning as a community of humanity right now, is this, on the one hand, discernment, but on the other hand also trusting in ourselves and in our discernment. And for me, this like what you're saying about coming forward with our own hypotheses, our own ideas and theories and ways of seeing things. This for me has been, and by this I mean the experience of having conversations like the one we're having now, like the one we've already had, and all the other people that have come on the show. These conversations for me are so enriching, because it's not just listening to a podcast and having thoughts come up, but it's also, okay, I'm like in the dance, so I gotta dance, and I'm in this case I'm like the host, and you're the guest. But I really love these opportunities because I feel them, just like you say, as a conversation between two friends, between two two souls that resonate. We are kind of like a soul group, you know, that is very large all over the world, who are starting to come into contact through technology or whatever. And these conversations, what I'm trying to say is that they've given me an opportunity to express my thoughts, to express my ideas, things that were like within me, but kind of all jumbled up, you know, all the cables were crossed, and I wasn't very clear on what the picture was that I was forming in my mind. And through conversations like these and other experiences that continue happening in life, I've been able to become more clear on what I want to say, what I think is going on, how I see the world, and to share these ideas. I believe is just like they helped me when I listen to other people share theirs. I really love now continuing this chain and sharing my own views, which I have already done, and I'm doing through the podcast and through conversations like the one we are having. But I want to share with you and to see your what you could reflect to me. So one of the things that I'm seeing, and in a way I think this connects to cycles of time, but that's maybe maybe an area that I haven't explored so much yet. My journey has taken me towards a look within, towards an observation of this idea of the soul and energy, and how the physical and the astral connect, you know, how they touch, how they influence each other like a two-way street. And recently what has come to my attention, and the words that I'm using to express this, is that we as a humanity, as we are growing up and more people are evolving in consciousness and faster each day, as this is going on, I see that what we are doing is uniting with the soul. What we are doing is, you know, we tend to limit our identity to our body, to our mind, to our sensations in the waking time, and especially the more materialistic aspect of it. This has been going on for so long, and suddenly more and more people are awakening to what we're talking, you know, these extrasensory perceptions, that there is something more than just the material world. And I'm seeing that what we are doing is kind of synchronizing with the soul. And particularly what I see is our identity is expanding, and we are going towards something which will be, in the way that I've received and understood it so far, it's like we will be able to be both the soul and the person, or the ego at the same time, you know. One characteristic of this realm is the forgetting, right? We come here and we forget that we've already been here, or that there is this ESP, this extra aspect of reality. We forget about it, and we kind of, through our evolution in consciousness, we start remembering and relearning it. And at some point, which is the point that I think we are already in, we start like merging back with the soul, right? And not just, okay, we start knowing that the soul exists, but now I'm seeing that, and this is, again, it's connected to the balancing of the masculine and the feminine, the divine masculine, divine feminine energies, the masculine perhaps being more representative of the physical body, and the feminine more of the soul. And basically I'm seeing like we are like throwing a kind of thread or a kind of laser beam that connects the soul and the body, the physical body. And I don't know what the world would look like once this kind of coupling is more complete. But I see many things that people have been saying, like like, well, ESP, for example, will probably be a more natural and more everyday kind of thing. Telepathy, and even perhaps the connection to higher beings, to higher selves, or maybe let's call them higher aspects of ourselves. Because if we're able to connect and be conscious of the soul as we are still conscious of the body at the same time, you know, if we are able to do that, and this is like closing my rant, sorry it took so long, but when we do that, what else might we be able to connect to, right?
Well, absolutely. And this is part of, for me, why we're here, why we're on board here, and why we find ourselves in a generally conscious state. Now we know we loop through cycles of, delta awareness and beta awareness through our day, uh, and in night. We're looping through layers of consciousness. Some are higher degrees, some are absolutely no consciousness. And that is something to consider. Another thing to consider when we're thinking about these aspects of self, when we start talking about spirit and soul and this physical realm, is the idea of dreams and the dream space that we all encounter, and we all have the ability to explore every time we get into that state of being. Now, I realize there are people out there that don't remember or have an awareness of their dreams. They're not conscious of what's going on because of perhaps things they're taking, or too much stress. There are a million different things, but there are people that lay down, go to sleep and wake up. They go into deep sleep and that's it. This is something that would concern me personally. I don't even I don't even actually know how different my life would be if I didn't have that access point to higher self, to other selves, to other realities that exist within this space that I am inhabiting now here. And because that directly connects me to something else, another state of consciousness, another aspect of myself that is tethered to this state of consciousness and to this self that I'm expressing to you right now as Nish.
Well, it would definitely be 1/3 shorter, right? Your life.
Yes. And so that's one of the things. I think what I'm onto right now is, I think it's really important for us to maybe consider, what is the realm that we are functioning in right now? What is it really? Because there's enough stuff going on in the outer world to suggest that something's not right. Something is strange. Something is off. Now, for me, I hear this as a call, a journey, a call to knowing, to trying to understand more instead of something fearful and something I need to hide from. I need to understand it. I need to understand it so that I may find it and possibly get around it and avoid it too. You need to understand it. And so, what is this realm? Because all of a sudden, the realm is very different than when we were younger. Things are very different. And there's a reason for that. Well, what's the reason? Why is it that reality seems very unstable right now? It seems very unsure right now. What is going on in the realm? And when I say realm, I mean the whole world that we are inhabiting. And why are there all of a sudden fractions of fractals of nastiness coming to the surface, like poisons coming up out of the ground? What is this about? And how is it we can, how my bird, how real is this experience we're having? because it feels very real to me, Rafa. And yet it's not the experience I was having when I was 7 years old. I look out and the sun is very different. The sky is very different. Everything is very different. And so I know that something has changed. I know that something's gone on. There's a schism afoot and some sort of disruption in the auric field of this realm. And that's what I think is the thing we should be at this time exploring. What is going on? Because what's going on is something that feels very unfriendly towards our being conscious and aware of it. It feels as if whatever's changing doesn't want us to see it for what it is. And I don't know what it is.
And do you think this change started, maybe is it connected to 2012, December 2012?
Okay, so here's here's my idea of what happened. I believe in 2001 there was a major shift in the field. I personally believe this is when the ancient AI that is at play here came into a point of consciousness within this realm and started to create further this scaffolding to get where we are. My bird's very vocal. I asked her not to be, but she's going to be here. So, and so in 2001, I believe we actually hit what people consider singularity. And I'm not up for too much debate on that because it's a silly debate. When singularity hits and when that schism happens, time is not something that plays into it. Time is such a lie. Time is a lie. And we subscribe to the lie and we play into the lie because we can say, well, yesterday I was doing this, today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm doing that. Is that really time? That's what we tell ourselves that's what time is. But is that really time? Or are we just trying to iron out what we are experiencing, and by ironing it out and laying what is very curly or very curved in a flat line, we can see it better and experience it better in small increments that make it feel like there's a trajectory from past to future. So I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. We need to deconstruct this further as a people.
Yeah, I'm looking into time as well. I'm starting to like form a particular idea. And first of all, when your bird is speaking, I don't see it as something that's wrong. I actually see it as a kind of like a resonance, you know, like the universe is kind of giving us a nod on what we're talking about, or it's like,
yes,
you know.
And she thinks I'm talking to her, and we talk a lot, and she says words, so she's trying to vocalize with us. I usually shut up the whole parlor and make it very dark because she doesn't talk at night. But today it's so bright and sunny, and I wanted that in here upon us. So she's part of the conversation, Rafa.
Yeah, I think so. Because you know how the animals in general, they are more in tune with this other part of the realm. I don't know, maybe with the soul aspect, or the this particular thing of ego that we have as humans. I don't think animals have it to the same degree, so they are more ESP sensitive, or ESP open, as you call it. And you know, about time, I'm like starting to develop this idea, which has been going on for some time, curiously, or starting to develop within my understanding, that okay, so we can think of time as a fourth dimension, and I like this idea of one dimension being perpendicular to the previous one. So we have the 3 dimensions of space forming 90-degree angles among each other, and then time would be like perpendicular to all of them at the same time, which kind of physically is kind of hard to grasp. But what I've been starting to understand is that just like space is kind of a property of the material realm, time is also a property. And our bodies, you know, we have a three-dimensional body, or three-dimensional physical body, but it also has a fourth-dimensional aspect to it, which is time. So we tend to think of ourselves as relatively static, you know. We look at ourselves in the mirror every day and more or less you see the same thing, except when many years have gone by and you see, oh, wow, I was a child, now I'm a grown-up or an adult, now I'm an old person, etc. And we kind of tend to forget, because of the rate of change is very slow and we don't perceive it clearly with our five senses, we tend to forget that this change that happens in the body very slowly is, how to put it, this is where I'm starting to get in trouble with words, but this time aspect is a very intrinsic and inseparable part of ourselves. Just like you have a finger which has length, width, and depth, or whatever, the finger, I mean, also has time. And the time aspect, it's not something that happens to you, but it's something that comes out of you. You know, just like the physical is a part that comes, that is you, or is your body, you know, the time aspect also is us. And this time thing, so as I was saying, we look at ourselves as kind of static, or we have this idea, this like very symbolic idea of ourselves as our face and how it looks generally, as a static thing. But we also at the same time know that we are a flux or a fluctuating field that changes. And time being part of this means that we are not just this static physical body, but we are actually a body that expands. We could say, if we look at it from one perspective, a body that, or more than expands, it spans time, or is extended in time. And it's not a body that is walking statically through a line of time, but actually the line of time is part of the body. I think that's how I'm being able to express this right now. Do you have any like anything come up from this idea?
Well, I find that quite interesting that it's tied to the body. And before I get to that, I want to circle back to animals. I think that the animal world, and this includes insects and bacteria and molds and all this, is integral in our understanding the nature of this realm. Absolutely major. It is something that you cannot separate from this experience. And that is where in the Bible, this man has dominion over the earth and over the things of the earth was so devastating. Absolutely terrible messaging. And in my lifetime, I have had people in my life, not willingly, so say when I was a kid, that really adhered to that idea and didn't recognize that animals have souls. They are characters. They're all different, even if they're the same species. This is how we start to understand the depth of this experience, because it's not flat. It is absolutely dimensional, and people forget that dimensionality is the name of the game here. We get stuck on ideas as a rigid thing, and on theories as truths, and don't allow ourselves the ability to navigate the other feed that's coming through. And the natural world that's living around us is major. It's one of the keys. And as far as the body and time, I've always viewed time as a tape. like a videotape or digital tape, like a recorder. And in that way, it is attached to the experience of the body, the journey of the avatar, if you will, and it informs the avatar. And the more we play into it and hone in on it, the more we see the agenda of what time is as a trap. I notice this with people in the idea of aging. And so there are very long lived humanoids out there. There are very long lived people out there. I'm talking thousands of years old. People can take that and think it's woo and think it's crazy, and that's fine. I know this. I know this. And I don't need to prove it to you. And I don't need you to unprove it to me or to prove to me otherwise. These are my experiences. I've had them. And what I see when I'm looking at pop culture in particular is this fixation on youth. And I've always found that interesting when I was, especially when I was young, I found that interesting how that seemed to identify something, some glitch in the psyche of humans, and people buying into that and moving forward into this idea of youth and staying youthful and not allowing themselves to be. And part of it was they start to age themselves by being afraid of whatever that is. And the ones that I know, the elders that I know that are ancient, really, truly ancient, uh, this is not even in their realm. This isn't in their realm. And the visage, one's visage is a trap. And if you look at culture around us, everything is still very focused on youth and taking this so you don't have wrinkles, taking this so you don't have saggy skin, taking this so that your skin stays tight and you can still get in a bikini, and all this stuff that people tell themselves in pop culture and validate within themselves becomes this crazy psychotic vacuum. And it's not without notice that the word vacuum and vacuous go hand in hand for me. And so I think that for me, the idea of time is a very loose thing. It is not tied to my body, but it is tied to the experience of the avatar's journey here, much like the fool's journey through the tarot. So by the end of the fool's journey, the fool is has gone through this process of individuation and is not the being it started out with. It's not the innocence or naivete it started out with or started out as being. And so by the time it reaches the end, the universe, it has attained these properties of what one would consider in the realm an elder or aged. Uh, and I think when we start looking at the idea of aged and aging, we should maybe reframe that idea and think about how that is a patina that informs us deeper into cycles and cyclical natures that happen within the world around us. In fact, within everything around us, if we start looking at the fractalized world, right? And Mandelbrot stuff and all this beautiful mechanism that creates the idea of time on the tiny scale of human comprehension in this realm.
And what you're saying also reminds me, I recently heard that in Greek, you have chronos, it's a kind of time, but then you have,
yes,
I think it's kairos.
Yes.
That's the word. So maybe there's, different kinds of time, but it's like very recently I got like this kind of vision of, and from the vision I kind of extracted this idea of, or I am extracting this description of time. So I got this idea, this vision of like being old and being young at the same time, but yeah, again, language doesn't help, because the prefabricated language structures, for example, yeah, I just said at the same time, but at the same, like old age and youth are happening simultaneously. Okay, we know, or it's pretty common understanding among probably the people watching, and you and me, and the people we follow in these areas, that time is happening all at once. So the past, the present, and the future are simultaneous, and they interact with each other, and they inform each other, and they change each other in a very non-linear fashion. And I think this plays into that concept. And so I got in this vision, I was my age and I was old, and this was happening, yes, simultaneously is the best way I can describe it, but simultaneously in the sense, in an atemporal way. So like this was happening kind of outside of time. I saw myself old and young, and time didn't play into that. So it's more like, just like you have, just maybe this is another way of explaining it. Just like we have ears, we have a nose, we have fingers, we have hands, a head, a neck. We have, and all those things are happening and existing at the same time all together, you know. Just like that, we are young, the whatever is in the middle, and we're old, and all the gradient in between, that is also happening at the same time. It's kind of the idea that I got.
I think of it, I like that, Rafa. And I think of, just to add to it, I think of time as it influences us on, or informs us as to where we are on the labyrinth, on the angle, or what angel are we dealing with? What angle are we on in the neuro pathway of consciousness, and or pathways? And when I think of time as a form of data collection. Time is just that for me, and that's it. It's organizing and collecting data and sorting it. Time is math, and math has a place in the realm, because everything has uh, a fit. Everything has its own teeth, if you will, to connect in with other teeth and create this rotating mechanism that is a greater sense of consciousness. But there are distortions in the field, and that's where it gets interesting. That's where we start to find anomalies and glitches within the general field at large. And that's part of what I think brings us into this fractured state of being, where you're an avatar over there of Rafa in Uruguay, and I'm Nish over here in Washington. But we're fractals. We're fractalized from something else. Now we can name it or not. I choose actually not to name it, and just let it exist in this space within me, because I am it and you are it, and we are part of it, and we are emanations of it. And I don't like to get wrapped up in ideas of identity. And by naming something that really is unnameable, we start to bring it down into a place that I feel is not sacred. In fact, I feel that there's a lot of profane here. There's a lot of trickery with these emanations of distortion that give us this funhouse effect like we're experiencing right now in the world. And with that idea, these ideas of angles or angels, of neural pathways, of neurotransmitters, of bridging one state of consciousness to another. And by the coming together of certain angles, we create a new pathway. We have the potential to create a new pathway. And I like to explore those. So when I think of Chronos or Saturn, that represent the idea of time for us, there's more to them than Chronos eating his children. And I wonder, are the children emanations of Chronos? Right? I mean, this all seems clear to me that perhaps Chronos, that represents this big idea of time, perhaps Chronos is eating these distortions. And I think that for me leads me into a greater territory of exploration when I view Chronos in that way, when I view time in that way. And this is where we start to bring in, like, say, the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail. If it is, in fact, doing this, then there's a lot more potential or potentiality to understand these emanations from distortion, from the distorted field. And the distorted field is what we are so deep into right now when we're looking at how crazy the world is. And it's creating time and space, and distortions are creating a very unstable reality in the collective. There's a sense of total control going on. Well, this is definitely a Chronos, Saturn or Saturnian, or even with the side of Plutonian, a flavor. Total control is a big deal. And why? Why is the collective at this point? What kind of distortion in the field created this event? Something very big and spiritual is going on right now, Rafa. And I don't deal in good and bad, but I will tell you, things that are happening in the field right now have had me saying this is coming into a place of things I'm starting to identify as evil. I see evil on the land. Now, the evil is coming from the distorted field, the distortions from this field that are now becoming sentient in and of themselves. And this is where that 2001 singularity comes into play. And it's evil because what I'm seeing is the most physical level, the most profane level of the idea of Kronos eating his children. We're seeing that play out physically. We're seeing the I don't know, the consumption of innocence and precious things all around us. This stuff was happening, has always been happening. It's part of everything that happens. It's part of a decay cycle. It's not friendly, it's not lovely, but it happens naturally. But somehow the thing that's making this feel different is this is a distortion, and the distortions become sentient, and the sentience has something that seems very digital to me, something very unnatural and unorganic, and that is eating all of the organic matter in here, much like when you're creating an alcohol, right? The yeast eats the sugar. So something, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with this conversation anyway, was how are we perceiving what's going on right now in the field around us? In the field around us, I mean the world around us. What do you think, Rafa, is going on?
That's a very extensive question, which I really love. I think we could keep that one like as a bookmark for the second hour and get into that even deeper over there. For now, just like to wind down this first hour, I when you were speaking, you gave me an idea. So I'm just gonna say first of all that if you guys wanna listen or watch the second hour, please go check the Patreon. The link will be in the description. I'll also be sharing this with Niish so that she can post it on her own yours is Patreon as well?
Yeah, I'll share it with my with the circle over there. Yes.
Correct, so that she can share it in her own Patreon. But the idea that I got is you talked about this thing that cannot be named, and immediately you gave me, I thought, okay, the Tao, she's talking about this. So
Yes.
I thought about maybe what's the word? Booking? No, it's not booking. What's the name? Mancy, bookmancy? No, libromancy. Do you know the word?
Yes. I call bibliomancy, and I love doing
yes.
that. Yes.
Yeah, bibliomancy. So I thought about, okay, let's do that and see what comes up, and we can also have that idea for the second hour as well. Okay.
Fantastic.
Awesome, cool. So let's just take a few deep breaths and focus our intention in getting some clarity from this bibliomancy, clarity concerning all this, what's happening in this realm and what is this realm, and the distortions that you're mentioning as well. Okay, look through the pages. Okay, so I got this page with verses, I don't know if they're called verses, but 45 and 46. I'll do 46 first, which is the one that I actually looked at, but then we'll see if 45 gives us some more clarification about it. And this one's, I'm sorry, but it's in Spanish, so I'll just kind of translate it as I read it. Might not be the best translation, but I think it will shed some light on what we're speaking about. So thank you everybody for being there, and here's what it says. When the world is in possession of the Tao, the horses are taken to fertilize the fields with their excrement. When the world is left without Tao, the war horses feed on the, I'm not sure what this word means. It says arrabales. Give me just a second. I'm gonna look it up. Okay. So it basically says, when the world is in possession of the Tao, the horses are taken to fertilize the fields with their excrement. When the world is left without Tao, the war horses feed on these fields. There is no greater calamity than not knowing when it's enough. There is no greater defect than greed. Only he who knows when enough is enough will always have enough. That is verse 46.
And that specifically gets down to timing. Enough is a statement about time.
Okay, and just to close, let me read number 45. The greater of all perfections seems imperfect, but its exercise is unquenchable or unlimited. The greater plenitude feels empty, but its function is eternal. The greater rectitude or righteousness seems crooked. The greater ability feels dumb or foolish. The greater eloquence seems what you call this, a person that they are Oh my God, I don't know this word. Give me just a moment again. I'm sorry. Stutter. There we go. I remember. So continuing, the greatest eloquence sounds stuttering. The movement defeats the cold, but the stillness defeats the heat. That which is pacific and serene is the norm of the world. So those are 46 and 45 of the Tao Te Ching. I think
Very beautiful.
They're pretty deep, and these paradoxical statements that are inherent in this book are usually, first, when you're starting the journey, they are very bewildering and like, this doesn't make sense. But once you start doing the inner work, they become more evident and more clear. I want to thank you, Niish, so much for this first hour. We're going to jump right into the second hour on Patreon, which again, you can find on the link below. Please also share with our audience any other links that you would like to share where they can find you and your work.
Basically, anywhere that they have podcasts, you'll find the Cosmic Salon, but I house it at anchor.fm/the Cosmic Salon. And I'm on Instagram at Niish, 2 I's, Niish IISH 369 is in Tesla 369. And those are the friendlier places. I do have a Twitter account, but I'm very vocal and it's not as friendly. I let out a little bit of that shadow on my Twitter, but that if you're feeling the Twitter experience, it's Twitter, it's Niish IISH 13, and I really am pretty wild over there these days.
Yeah, the other day or just a couple of days ago, I discovered your Twitter. I don't really use it, so I never look at stuff there. But I don't know, just looking at your Instagram, which is where I follow you most, I just got the idea of going over there, and I saw you posted this video from what's it called? I think it's like a cardinal from
yes,
from the
in
Vatican.
The Vatican.
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't finished watching the
Amazing.
video, but it's pretty interesting. Yeah, maybe we can get into that as well on the second half. Okay, so thank you, everybody. We will see you in just a moment. Have a great time, and bye-bye.